to the podcast, Ulrika. How are you today?
Thank you, Conny. I'm great. I'm excited to be here having a conversation with you, Conny.
I'm excited you're here too. So tell my audience, where in the world are you located? And then also tell us one thing that surprises most people to hear about you.
Mm. I am located on the East Coast of the United States, outside the Boston area, Massachusetts. And if I'm going to say something surprising about myself, I'm very adventurous. And people who meet me for the first time think that I'm this calm, serene person that's just kind of sitting in meditation or, give that calm aura about me. But I'm actually very adventurous. And so I'm very excited to go to new places, explore and travel. And sometimes people don't see that in me the first time they meet me, but yes, that's I don't know if it's surprising, but it's a quality that I have, that I'm adventurous.
Nice. I love it. I'm adventurous too. So you're now an intuitive spiritual life coach. That's how you call yourself, no? And from your bio, I know that you're also a scientist. So one sentence that I love about you, you were saying that you were driven by the mind where chaos often starts, but now you living from the heart and intuition where peace starts. And from the name of the podcast, From Chaos to Peace, that's my theme, no? So what's the story behind this shift? So because you're not just going from scientist to spiritual intuitive life coach without a story, I would assume.
Yes, there's a story behind this. And just to give you a flavor of how I made this shift and how it came about, it's many years ago. I was a scientist. I was in the corporate world for 20 plus years. So that was how I started my path as an adult, very much fulfilling, I would say, a template in a way for what success looks like. And I had a young family at the time, and all of those things that in a way society defines as a successful woman. So that was me. And after about 20 years, I had come to the point that I fully identified myself with my career. That was me. So my self-identity was very much attached to my career and what I did and all of that. And if somebody asked me back then, like, Ulrika, what are you doing for fun? Like, what are your hobbies? Or who are you? I didn't have an answer. And that means, knowing what I know now, that I was so far detached from knowing who I am, that I was more attached to this external picture of what success could look like, etc. Mm-hmm. But what also happened was that I lost my job in a restructuring of a company, and that I didn't see it coming. And if you're putting that framework into how important my career was to me, it really hit my self-identity. And what happened was that I was presented basically with a choice. Am I going to see myself as a victim, or am I going to see myself as an opportunity to bloom into something else? And now, knowing what I know now, is that it was divine timing. The universe was orchestrating this major shift for me, because I was so far disconnected from myself that I wouldn't have really taken myself out of that image, if you will, or inner perception about myself. But it so happened, and it hit where it mattered the most, which many of us have gone through rock bottoms, right? And if we go back and think like, oh, well, was it really that happened? It often hits where it matters the most. And in my case, it was my career. And that launched me into a journey of self-discovery. And my soul made a choice to kind of open up that area to really find out, who am I? What is my true self, and what does that consist of, and what am I truly talented in? And it turns out that I am an intuitive. I am someone who is here to bridge this shift that many of us are feeling, have been fulfilling a template for many years, and go for and living the chaos, right? Because sometimes what happens is that we are working against our own energy, but we so desire to fulfill a template, to bridge that into really teaching how we can connect to our true self and live from that place, from inside and out. And that is through getting to know ourselves, right? Becoming self-aware, becoming sovereign in our own lives, and live from that place. So yeah, that's a long story, but that's simply what happened to me. And there are many steps on the way from that day when I started to open up to opportunity, getting to know myself. There's a number of steps that had led me to where I'm at now and beyond. But yeah.
Yeah, I bet. I like how you say you were living a template. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say it that way, but that's exactly what we're doing. No, it's kind of like society shows us the template, and we're trying to squeeze ourselves into this template to be successful, because that's how we grow up, being told or being shown, maybe in real words, but maybe also just subconsciously. That's what we need to do. And yeah, there could be so many, like I come from the corporate world too, and I can feel how we're just how it is a struggle too, and a long process to move from where we what we were doing in the template or filling the template to actually who we really are. Why do you think because I feel like this question I haven't thought of before, but now I'm just thinking about, why do you think some people know early on how they don't want to fit in the template and they know who they are, and others don't? Do you have an answer to that?
That's a very deep question.
Yeah, I know.
How does one know from the start what they want, who they are, and why does some not? I personally believe that we come into this life with a number of life lessons that we have decided to explore and experience. And if we take the question, like comparing somebody that comes into a life at 7 years old, they know that they're going to be a veterinarian, let's say, and they do that, while somebody discovers that at 55 years old, that, oh, this is what I really was here to do. I believe that there is we can't really compare one person's life journey in this life to another person's life journey. So, because when we ask that question, like, well, how do you know who you are from the start? It's to take somebody's life into very an isolated, we have to look at the whole picture from a higher perspective of somebody's life journey, because there's so many areas of our lives where this life lesson can show up. It might not be in career, it might be in relationships, it might be in other areas of our life. So just to answer your question, if somebody comes into this life knowing exactly what they want and fulfilling that purpose, it doesn't mean that they're not having life lessons to learn. It might be in other areas of life. Does that help?
Yeah. I was just thinking about it because I actually downloaded the book you wrote, and in there you're saying, and I thought that sentence spoke to me. You say, and I read it here, so I say it correctly how you wrote it. I had been completely caught off guard. However, deep down in my subconscious, I wasn't surprised by the past week's turns of events. And so I was thinking, like, maybe we all come in and know it, but some of us, me included, make the template more important instead of listening to ourselves. And I was wondering whether it maybe you had some insight, and I know I put you on the spot, but I mean, I thought maybe you have some insight why that is. Also, because I was just listening to an interview between Bradley Cooper and Oprah, or Oprah was interviewing Bradley Cooper about his movie, about his movie making, and he said he knew when he was 12 what he wanted to do, and now he's doing it. And so I was just thinking, are we all knowing it? But some of us are so conditioned to follow and fit into the template that we're not listening. And that's why you can say the ego or your mind was completely caught off guard, but deep down you knew it. It's kind of like, because I have a similar experience. So it's like, I was just
Yeah, no, you're bringing up a great perspective. And you know, all we as humans, we want to kind of know or pinpoint things that are wrong in our life and what's right, but everything is really right.
Yeah.
So that's why I can
from the mind and not from the heart, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes. Because all the hardships that we experience as hardships, in my opinion, is really doesn't have to be something wrong for our life journey. It is something that we have to experience to learn. And once we come to a point where we can accept all the hardships that we go through and accept all the celebrations we go through in life as equally important for the learning of our to become whole, right? Then we can actually appreciate what we go through on a daily basis, even if it's a hardship, and even if it's a celebration, if you will, and appreciate both.
Yeah.
So I think just to go back to this example of the template, I know now that my experience in my life, having gone through, the template, being exhausted and pushing myself through that was all part of my learning how to become myself at the end of the day, right? Because if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't have been able to celebrate what I have now, the difference, and see the difference in how I experience and perceive my life. So it was all good at the end of the day, even if it didn't feel like it at the time.
Yeah.
But it's that higher perspective of our lives that we have an invitation to take a look at our full trajectory in life and not exclude the hard times, but actually see the hard times as learning ground, right?
Yeah.
Learning experience. And what you also pointed out here is our subconscious mind, our higher self, our true self knows all of this already. What our experience in life is going to be, or is right now, or have been in the past. And that is what we're tapping into when we live from the heart. It just is. There is no like, oh, is it this way or that way? That it's not that duality anymore. It's more like, okay, it just is. And that's really the difference, the higher perspective of it, that we have an invitation to view it that way.
Yeah. And conceptually, we all, or like if we're becoming still, we're understanding it. And then I'm thinking the mind probably and the ego gets in the way again. No, because then when you're then you kind of like understand it. So I study astrology a lot, and you can see it that way, and it's totally nice to see it that way, and then you slip into this ego thing again, and you're like, yeah, but no. Then you want to control life again. No.
Yeah.
So maybe you touched on it already a little bit, but maybe for the listeners, how would you define the difference between what comes from the mind, or a sentence that pops into our head from the mind, compared to something that actually comes from the subconscious or the heart, how you call it? How and when can we start understanding the difference? Because in our society, we're so driven, and it's almost only accepted if you come from the mind and the logic and everything. And the minute you say, oh, I feel it, everybody looks at you like, what? So, but if we want to move from the mind to the heart, from the chaos to the peace, how can we start understand the difference when it actually comes from the ego and when we're in our higher self and that is talking to us?
Such an important question. And one of the things that is the signature of the mind and the ego is really that duality that I was talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. When we are having doubts, when we are having a choice to make that we don't know, am I going to go this way or that way? There is some worry in there. There may be some, I don't know the answer, right? The mind and the ego wants us to have an answer. And the challenge is, and it wants us to live and draw from the past in generating those answers, because that's the domain that the mind or the ego operates in. It only has the past to draw from. And it wants an answer, and it wants the clear answer that you logically can understand. Now, what if the mind only operates in a limited way, when it requires from us to have an answer and only draw from the past? When we start to open up to unlimited answers, there is there has to be a willingness to step into the unknown. The ego does not like the unknown at all. So how can we identify if we just know, or if we are up in our mind where we need to kind of have an answer and control the answer, and it has to make sense, right? So the first step is really to start to observe that inner conversation that we all have. Even if you're listening or watching this right now, there is an inner conversation going on within each one of us. And the first step is really to become aware of that inner conversation. And that can take some practice. And what I personally discovered once I allowed myself to kind of, is there really an inner conversation, yeah, it is something going on. I started to notice that conversation that I had within myself was not really supportive at all of me. It was, very harsh and very, you're not enough, and is often the words that come out of that. And what I realized is that it's the ego's mind, what I call ego mind in the book, that is keep telling us to requiring these answers, stay within the comfort zone, and draw from the past. And that's many of us are maintaining that inner conversation at all times. So no wonder we don't allow ourselves to step into the unknown, or even tap into that heart energy where there is no self-doubt. It just is, because the heart and our higher self, our true self, knows already what's right for us. But it starts with allowing ourselves to believe that the mind does not have all the answers. because if we allow the mind to be in charge, we only have access to so much, right?
Yeah.
But if we are opening up to, what if I can be given a sign that is exactly in alignment with my next decision, and actually trust that, because trust is a big component of stepping into the unknown, right?
Yeah. We have to allow then some uncertainty. And I just remember in your book, you wrote too that before you made that shift, I think the sentence was uncertainty, or no, certainty was like the fuel in a car, and you needed that. And if we need to trust, we need to embrace uncertainty. No, and I think especially in these times that we have right now, so many people say everything is so uncertain. That's why they feel so lost in a way too. So yeah, and I think as a society, the goal is really to move away from this mind, or putting the mind on a pedestal, and actually really start living from the truth, how you call it, or from, like, we know, like you say somewhere too, like we know in our body whether it's right or not. There is other authors or spiritual teachers that say that the body never lies. So you have to start learning to listen to the body, and you feel a tension inside of you if you're too much in your brain. So, but it's so hard when we're so conditioned, and so we get all the praise for fitting into the template, no? And we're not getting the praise for not fitting in the template anymore. So.
Exactly. Very much so. And you know, one way of also noticing this, if you're in your mind or in your heart, is, am I in the present moment? Or am I thinking about something in the past? Or do I feel anxious about something in the future? That's also a gauge.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's a good gauge. Yeah, I love that. So, why did you decide to write your book? Was it because right now everybody seems to write their book, or I would assume the answer is no to that question, because there was probably something from inside of you. But I'm wondering, why did you decide to write your book?
Yeah, thank you for asking about my book. Wisdom Beyond What You Know was really, I realize now, it's a channeled download, because the message in the book is just like you were saying. It's something that people need to hear and need to understand and embody at this time. And I started it was a process about 10 months, which is not that long for a first-time author. And that's how I realized that this really came through me at the right time. And I was kind of I know Elizabeth Gilbert in her book, Big Magic, she speaks about when a purpose or a message needs to come through, a person is picked for that through creativity and through, someone that's ready to deliver the message. And I strongly feel that I was picked for this, to get this book out in the world right now. And so again, it was a energy from the heart and my higher self, my true self, that brought it through. It was not a decision I made 5 years ago, like in 2022, I'm going to be author, I'm going to teach this. And it was not a strategic decision, which is often what the mind wants to come up with. Like, we set these goals.
Yes.
In 3 years, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And that's often not how it works. I knew that my talents and gifts are related to writing and this intuitive channeling, that I can put my pen to paper and simply let go and let what comes out on the paper. And I knew that because I had been done intuitive journaling for many, many years. So all of a sudden, this just came through me. And Yeah. So I'm very, very happy. I got picked in the sense to be the
Yeah.
vessel for this message.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't really matter it's this creative life force. And for some, it comes through when it comes to other creative expressions, right? Painting or music or any kind of creation that we can share with others. So it's for me, it's writing.
Yeah, it's beautiful, especially when you feel like it came through you. This reminds me, in the book, you're talking about a morning routine and about that intuitive journaling, which I thought was very interesting. I haven't done it in such a, like, I don't want to even say structured way, but it seems like you're doing it kind of like after your meditation in the morning. So that's kind of what I mean with structured way. Maybe could you share with my audience a little bit how you do this? Because I thought that was really interesting, because also because I feel like maybe that will help my audience to get more in touch with their heart if they do this. And this is something we all can do, easily and simply, even, if we're actually doing it. Yeah, if you would want to share.
Yes, I love, Conny, that you brought this up, because it's this notion that we are not intuitive, for example, that we have to use mediums or channelers or to get the messages. That has been the notion for a long time. But now, once more and more people are actually opening up to tap into their own heart energy, into intuition, yes, it's about believing that we can listen to ourselves, our higher self. So intuitive journaling is, in my opinion, one of the best way of getting in contact with your higher self or your guides. And the reason is, I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because the reason is, when we write something down, it becomes real. And many people sometimes mix this up with, if you're not writing it down, it stays in our mind, it stays in our thought process. And people are starting to doubt themselves. Is this really what I received? Is this like, but when we write it down in the moment, let's say you take 4 minutes, 5 minutes of peace where you sit by yourself, no distraction, and with a piece of paper and a pen, and just start writing without even thinking about what you're writing. That's to turn on the switch for your intuition. And what that does is that you can go back and see what came out and came down on the piece of paper, and you can actually learn from that. But the challenge that many people experience is that they want to go in and edit. They want to kind of look at it and say, no, did I really write this? I can't. And that is also, we can learn from that when we judge ourselves or judge what comes out of our creative force, because all the judgment is really the mind trying to bring us back to the comfort zone, right? No, you have believed this about yourself or your writing abilities or anything that comes out on the paper. You have believed that for so long. How can you change your mind, right? But this is really a new way of receiving information.
Mm-hmm.
And it's far away from figuring it out, right? It's far away from getting the exact answer, the right answer. It's an exploration. It's a creative force that the wave we're riding on in intuitive journaling is really our own life force, our own creative force. And there's no need, the way I feel about it now is that there's no need to hone that in. Just let it flow, let it grow, and see what comes out. And I also would say that many also feel that, oh, I don't want to know what comes up, because many of us have had traumas in life that we think are, and we feel they are at the surface of we have been pressing it down likely for many, many years. And but for those who are feeling that I wouldn't want to take the lid off my soul because of all this trauma, I invite anyone who feel that your trauma is under the surface to let the lid come off gradually, and allow yourself to stay detached from what comes through, because there's a learning in there. And if we believe that we can learn from our traumas, then it becomes something positive. So I just want to plug that in there, because the ego will want us to stay in the comfort zone. And for many, the comfort zone is to press down everything we don't want to experience.
Yes.
Or relive. But there is a relief and a freedom in be able to kind of unload.
Yeah. Yeah, you may or may not know, like when I help my clients, I help them declutter their life. And I also always say, like, everything starts with the mind anyway, so declutter your mind. And I always say, like, decluttering is self-love. And I think that's what you're talking to, and also, like, the mind is not just a critic, but I feel like, at least my mind, and I experience it with my clients too, is also this, it's all or nothing. It's this perfectionist thing. And you said it really nicely, like, do it in small steps. Let the lid come off small, and our brain and our mind, this inner critic always tells you, well, no, you either do it or you don't, and there's almost like nothing in between, like you said earlier, this polarity, this, and this is where I'm often say to my clients too, is like, when you start doing it small, like another saying I have is, a few minutes a day keeps the chaos away. And you can use this anywhere. You can use this with emotions, with the mind, with the inner chatter. You can use it with physical things, with digital things. And often people always say, oh no, well, that doesn't make a difference. And they're forgetting that it is a journey. It's not like you flip a switch and and so yeah, I love how you say this. And then also, like, I have to read another quote from your book, because I thought that was also so beautiful. Instead of being driven by what I can tangibly accomplish, what others think of me, or what others say is the right way to succeed, my inner voice of guidance provides a steady flow of gentle nudges, inner calm, and self-love, all of it within an unbreakable, invisible shield of protection around me. And this is the ultimate place to be. This is really when you moved from chaos to peace, when you have this inner knowing, and then this invisible shield around you that the world outside can say or suggest or do whatever, and inside of you that this doesn't matter for you, that you have a different path. But yeah, most of us, we think we need to get there quick, and if we don't get there quick, then it doesn't work. But no, it's a process. It needs to go slow.
Yes. And I love that you pointed out that quote, because you pointed out exactly the difference between living in the chaos and needing that validation from the outside world to ensure that you're validated as in your identity, versus feeling that on the inside, that no matter of who or what is surrounding me, I know that I am, and that I'm loved by myself. But I also acknowledge there's a journey to get to that point. And it starts with the invitation to open up to something that you can learn about yourself. And just by saying yes to that question, yes, I want to learn something new about myself. Then you're starting the journey of stepping into the heart energy. And even if it feels scary, because what I've learned also working with the universe and universal energy is that we're never really given, in that sense, that when we open up to the unknown, so to say, we're never really given anything more than what we can handle.
Yeah.
And the trust in that is is huge, because even if it feels, we have to get to a place of being okay with being uncomfortable, because that's where the gold is. That's where the learning is. And and that kind of in the mind, that speaks to like, how can that be? It's
Yeah.
not good to feel uncomfortable, right? The mind says.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in the heart energy, that's where we learn. And that's when we are provided with an opportunity to release and love more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this dichotomy between what the mind tells us, don't go there, it hurts, no, don't.
Yeah.
And the heart is, this is where you need to be able to heal and release that pain.
Yeah. And I sometimes feel like the chaos, like there's two chaoses. There is the chaos from the outside that basically tells us the template and how we need to fit in it. But I think the inner chaos is actually that we're trying to not live from the heart. No, that is actually the chaos. And the mind constantly interferes. Like, even if we're trying to start living from the heart, the mind constantly interferes. I just watch it in my clients. In one way, they want to do what they see in the shows, when within 24 hours their whole house is decluttered, not realizing that they couldn't even handle this uncluttered space. And it's similar with our inside. No, we couldn't even handle to be thrown into that space of peace, right? Because the brain, we need to take a handle on the brain first and go step by step.
Yes.
And so
everything goes in a cycle. Everything goes in a cycle. And you, likewise me, astrology points us to those cycles.
Yeah.
And often it is something we start on a new moon, for example. It takes, almost 36 months for, if you want to look at a certain cycle. And the mentality that the mind has, or we've been conditioned to, is that we want to press that easy button and we want it like right away.
Yeah.
But it's a journey. And I think that's where that gradual, realistic, how we can tap into steps that feels realistic and feels exciting to take, not scary to take.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we can turn it around and start typing into trusting ourselves that we can do it.
And the mind, I think sometimes it's not even that uncomfortable to step into it. It's more like it's unfamiliar, and the brain constantly tells us, oh, it's unfamiliar, so it's uncomfortable. But it's just unfamiliar, like, I think that's sometimes also a distinction that we're forgetting to make because we're so busy listening to our brain. No, that it's not necessarily just uncomfortable. It's just unfamiliar and it's new. And you said you were adventurous. So I think inviting the being adventurous even in our inner journey, and realizing that it is not necessarily uncomfortable, it's just exciting. Or that reminds me of, like, some people have stage fright, and I know, like, one of my favorite singers is Bruce Springsteen. He always says, like, I'm not nervous, or I am nervous before I go on stage, but if I tell myself I'm excited to go on stage, it's the same feeling in the body. It's just, we need to redirect the mind to, it's exciting. It's take the high road, not the one that pulls you down.
Very beautifully said. Yes.
Yeah. I really love these deep conversations. We need to be mindful of my audience a bit. So where can people find you if they're interested, if they want to read your book, if they want to connect with you? Tell them a little bit where they can go.
Yes, you're more than welcome to visit my website, ulrikasullivan.com, and you will find my book there. You will find many blogs that I've written that are I call it, both the book and what I write is very, it's actionable spiritual self-help, because I truly believe that what people need at this time is not some theory on what could be, right? It's hands-on exercises and insights that can actually make difference for someone if they are willing to engage in the work that needs to be kind of done. And that's why I want to come back to that beautiful reference to a morning routine that you had. Mm-hmm. That is the key to be able to switch anything in your life, to come back every day, come back, or at a regular pace that you decide that works for you. And that's also the thing. Ask yourself, if you're listening or watching this, what works for me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that is the question that we are never asking ourselves when we're trying to fulfill a template.
Yeah, exactly.
So it can be, if you are someone that is drawn to nature, for example, maybe the morning routine is to step out intentionally for 5-10 minutes a day, hugging a tree, right? That could be a practice.
Yeah.
So, and on my website, you'll also find how you can work with me or how you want to engage with me. I offer also a book club where that is free, where we discuss each of the concepts in the book over 4 sessions. So that's also an invitation to someone who want to read the book, but also want a little bit more interaction and going deeper, just for integrating purposes. And that's something I offer, because I didn't want to leave people hanging, just kind of buy a book, put it on the shelf, read it and put it on the shelf. It's like, no, that's not what I am about. So that's also another way to ease yourself into all of these concepts, to join the book club.
Yeah, that's awesome. I will put all the links in the show notes, of course. So, so at the end, I always say, do you have any last words, any wisdoms or tips? But I feel like you gave so much wisdom already, but I still want to give you the opportunity. Is there anything you feel from your heart that hasn't been said yet, that needs to be said to wrap this up, to put a bow on it?
Yeah, what I wish for everyone is to say yes to their own evolution and to learn more about ourselves. Because as I said in the book, in the intro there's so much more to us as a soul. And my mission is also to help others expand that perspective of who they are, not only in this life, but tapping into and understanding all of the aspects of us from past lives to future lives, and what we're here to do and be and learn in this life. So if there's anything I want to leave your audience with, is that there is more, but it requires to be willing to explore that. So ask yourself the question, am I willing? Is it time for me now? And if it is, you know where I am.
Yeah. Such beautiful last words. Beautiful conversation, Ulrika. I'm so honored and glad you came on to my podcast and answered all my questions so beautifully. Thank you so much, Ulrika.
Thank you so much, Conny. This has been a delight.